Good evening and welcome to Global Lens News. I'm Sadia Afzal. The defense agreement between Pakistan, Turkey and Saudi Arabia is far more significant than a conventional military cooperation pact. It comes at a time when the security landscape of the Middle East and the wider region is undergoing a fundamental transformation. For decades, regional security has largely been dependent on external powers and their security guarantees. But the events of recent years have changed that calculation. Countries across the region are increasingly asking a simple question. Can we continue to depend entirely on others for our security, or do we need to develop stronger collective capabilities of our own? This agreement is an answer to that question. The most important aspect of the pact is its principle of collective security. An attack against one partner is to be treated as a matter of concern for the others. That takes this relationship beyond ordinary defense cooperation and creates the foundation for a genuine security partnership. And we should not look at this agreement only through the question of who it is directed against. The more important question is, what is it designed to achieve? And the answer is deterrence, strategic autonomy, and collective security. Pakistan, Turkey and Saudi Arabia each bring something different to this partnership. Pakistan brings decades of military experience, one of the region's largest and most experienced armed forces, and strategic deterrence. Turkey brings an increasingly sophisticated defense industry, advanced military technology, and expertise in drones, naval systems, electronic warfare, and indigenous defense production. Saudi Arabia brings enormous economic strength, strategic geography, and the ability to invest heavily in defense, technology, and long-term security capabilities. Put these three together, and you have the potential for something much larger than a military alliance. You have the beginnings of a strategic ecosystem, and that is where this agreement becomes particularly important. The region is moving towards greater strategic autonomy. Strategic autonomy does not mean cutting ties with the United States or abandoning existing alliances. It means having options. It means ensuring that regional countries have the ability to respond collectively when their security interests are threatened. Turkey itself is a NATO member. Pakistan has long-standing security relationships with multiple countries. Saudi Arabia has been one of Washington's most important partners in the Gulf. So this should not be interpreted as an attempt to replace one power with another. It is better understood as regional powers creating additional pillars of security, and that could prove extremely important in the years ahead. Because once countries begin building collective security mechanisms, others naturally start looking at the possibility of joining or cooperating with that framework. Turkey's Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan has already indicated that the framework could potentially expand to include other countries. And this is perhaps the most strategically interesting aspect of the agreement. What begins today as a partnership between three countries could eventually develop into a broader regional security network. Imagine a future in which additional Gulf or Muslim-majority countries participate in joint exercises, intelligence sharing, air defense cooperation, cybersecurity initiatives, naval security, and defense production. That would fundamentally change the strategic calculations of the region, and Pakistan has an especially important role to play here. Pakistan has historically maintained close defense ties with Saudi Arabia while simultaneously developing an exceptionally strong strategic relationship with Turkey. This agreement brings those two relationships together in a formal trilateral framework. For Pakistan, that creates an opportunity not only to strengthen its own national security, but also to position itself as an important player in the emerging regional security architecture. There is also a major economic and technological dimension. If Saudi investment, Turkish defense technology, and Pakistani defense expertise are brought together, we could eventually see joint defense production, technology partnerships, research and development, and new military industrial projects. That would make the relationship much more sustainable. Because the strongest alliances are not built only through military exercises. They are built through institutions, technology, investment, intelligence cooperation, and shared strategic interests. And there is another important point. A stronger regional defense architecture does not necessarily mean greater instability. In fact, if designed properly, it can create greater stability through deterrence. The purpose of deterrence is not to start wars. It is to make potential aggression so costly that an adversary thinks twice before taking that step. If Pakistan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia can create credible collective deterrence, that could actually contribute to stability rather than undermine it. This is why the agreement should be viewed positively. It reflects a changing world in which regional countries are no longer willing to leave their security entirely in the hands of external powers. They want greater strategic autonomy. They want stronger partnerships, and they want the ability to collectively respond to emerging threats. For Pakistan, this is a particularly significant moment. We are not simply talking about another defense agreement. We could be witnessing the beginning of a new regional security architecture, one that is driven increasingly by the countries of the region themselves. And if other countries eventually join or develop parallel arrangements with this framework, its significance could become much greater. The real test, however, will be implementation. If this agreement translates into joint exercises, intelligence cooperation, cybersecurity, air and missile defense, naval cooperation, defense technology, and joint production, then its impact could be genuinely transformative. The message is ultimately very simple. In an increasingly uncertain world, countries cannot afford to rely entirely on someone else's security umbrella. They need strong friends, strong capabilities, and the ability to stand together. Pakistan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia have taken an important step in that direction. And perhaps years from now, we may look back at this agreement not simply as a defense pact between three countries, but as the moment when a new model of regional security began to take shape.